Okay, so the World Cup is over. The confetti that has been lying on the pitch of the Olympiastadion in Berlin has been cleared. Millions of fans have left, and stadiums have been empty, dark, and lifeless. But little did most fans know that the summer of 2006 would enforce change across Europe and beyond in a way that's never been seen before. Not just the usual signings and all that jazz, but also something that would change an entire country's football landscape forever. In this podcast episode, we'll be reviewing together everything that mid to late July 2006 had to offer. So turn up the volume, get comfortable, and let's get to it. Before we start, just a quick reminder that if you're into nostalgia and want to escape everything wrong with modern football, you can always subscribe to the channel that you're listening to this podcast on, which is Triple X Kickoff, where we make a variety of content. We just basically mix the past and the present when it comes to football. So make sure you hit like, subscribe, and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more content like this. And while you're doing that, let's get to it. We will start with the transfer window, and specifically with William Gallas and Ashley Cole. Now, William Gallas was a key player in helping Chelsea win back-to-back Premier League titles, whilst Arsenal have had Ashley Cole to thank especially because Arsenal managed to reach the Champions League final, which they lost to Barcelona, and also reached the top four. So now, you be thinking, wow, these two players are having decent seasons at their clubs. Surely they should not be leaving their clubs, right? Wrong. Because towards the end of the transfer window, both William Gallas and Ashley Cole swapped clubs, meaning that Ashley Cole went to Chelsea and William Gallas went to Arsenal. This transfer was just so weird because imagine you told a football fan in 2006 that they would tell you, dude, that's just weird. It's like Zinedine Zidane going to Barcelona and Ronaldinho going to Real Madrid. Seriously. But that was not the biggest transfer to come out of England at the time because there were also some defense transfers like Dirk Kuyt going from Feyenoord to Liverpool, Dimitar Berbatov from Bayer Leverkusen to Tottenham. There was also Michael Carrick from Tottenham Hotspur to Manchester United, and many more. And speaking of Chelsea, they also brought in Andriy Shevchenko from AC Milan for around 30 million euros, while they also signed Marco Ballack on a free transfer from Bayern Munich. Meanwhile for Arsenal, they managed to get the replacements for Robert Pires and also Dennis Bergkamp and also Jose Antonio Reyes by bringing in Thomas Rosicky and many more players as they were looking to start their new era, especially since they were moving from the Highbury to the Emirates Stadium. More on Dennis Bergkamp and what I just told you later. However, there were also some good transfer like Obafemi Martins, who went from Inter Milan to Newcastle as they wanted to replace their all-time top scorer and legend, Alan Shearer. But the biggest transfer to come out of England of 2006 has to be when West Ham, yes, you heard me right, West Ham, the team who not just 2 years ago, last season, actually. Last season, were promoted to Premier League. They actually were a decent team. They even reached the FA Cup final, only for them to lose to Liverpool because you know that goal that Gerrard scored. But anyways, on transfer deadline day, they brought in two of Argentina's biggest World Cup stars. That was Carlos Tevez and Javier Mascherano for around how many pounds? That deal, seriously, was one of the biggest talking points of the entire summer, because literally, this is a team that only got promoted last season. That 3 years ago were literally playing against smaller teams like Wickham Wanderers and, Preston North End and Millwall and all these other teams in the championship. Now, they've just signed two of Argentina's biggest World Cup stars. So that is a huge boost financially. And so let's see how they fare at Upton Park. Can West Ham do better than they did last season? Maybe they could even reach the Champions League. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Anyways, moving on to Spain, where Fabio Cannavaro, the man who guided Italy to World Cup glory, went to Real Madrid alongside Emerson from Juventus, and also leaving Juventus was both Zambrotta and also Lilian Thuram. However, there was a rightful reason for them to leave Juventus, but we'll get into that later. Also, Ruud van Nistelrooy left Old Trafford following disputes with Alex Ferguson and obviously with Cristiano Ronaldo, in which he insulted his father to the point where Alex Ferguson decided, nope, we cannot have this behavior here. He should leave, and that is exactly what happened. As also. And Jose Antonio Reyes joined as Real Madrid were looking to rebuild after three consecutive seasons without a trophy, plus also Florentino Perez leaving as well, and also the departure of Zinedine Zidane. Now, there's been many. Now, while clubs are literally signing new players and all that jazz. Oh, just to not to mention that Zlatan Ibrahimovic went from Juventus to Inter Milan. Now, but you be asking me, bro, why did so many players leave Juventus? Because after all, Juventus were like, they're the back-to-back Serie A champions, and they're going to be playing Champions League football. They're playing among the best of the best in Italy. So you just asked me, why the hell are so many players leaving Italy? I mean Juventus, joining other clubs. Well, the reason what I'm about to tell you is so shocking. It changed the entire reputation of Serie A forever. Now, the Calciopoli Scandal in 2006 was literally one of the biggest scandals in football history, because a lot of Serie A teams, we're talking about the biggest teams in Italy and possibly even Europe, including AC, were literally accused of fixing Serie A matches. The biggest problem were Juventus, though, especially their general manager Luciano Maggi, who literally asked referees to change the matches in their favor. So basically, he wanted Juventus to win because of the referees. He wanted the referees to be more strict on their opponents and lenient to Juventus, and that's what led them to winning the league in any case. Well then, after Italy celebrated their World Cup victory, everything came back to haunt them as Juventus were found guilty and eventually stripped of their titles they won last season and 2005 and relegated to Serie B, while also having a 30-point deduction. AC Milan, on the other hand, were also involved. Literally, originally they were banned from playing in the Champions League, but then they want to appeal to participate in it again, only for them to participate in the third qualifying round, which we'll talk about in the next episode. But they were handed an 8-point deduction, whilst Fiorentina and Lazio were both disqualified from playing European competitions. In the end, Chievo Verona, who originally finished in the UEFA Cup spot, were actually promoted to the Champions League. And we will talk about the Champions League qualifiers in the next episode. But this Calciopoli scandal literally did so much damage to the Italian game that, spoiler alert, it literally never became the same ever again. Because imagine, your team won back-to-back championships, then your country won the biggest tournament in world sports, and then everything just falls before your own eyes. I made a video about this earlier in this year, so you can go check it out. I'll put the link in the description below. But anyways, let's just see how the Serie A will fare without one of its biggest clubs, and especially, can Inter Milan or Roma or even AC Milan put up a title fight? We'll see what happens. But it was not just the only change that happened before the new season started. There were some other changes. In Greece, the country's top division officially changed its name from the Alpha and Thiki to the Greek Super League. You know, the Greek Super League that has teams like Olympiakos, Panathinaikos, AEK Athens, and more, as part of an effort to modernize the competition and improve its commercial appeal. Another change is that following Montenegro's declaration of independence, which I told you about in my World Cup podcast, which happened 5 days before the World Cup started, Serbian and Montenegrin football split into separate league systems. So Serbia launched the Serbian Superliga, and Montenegro prepared for the first season of the Montenegrin First League. Then the third change was that it was a big change, and it happened in literally the biggest club competition in the world. Now, before the 2006 or 7 season, clubs could just use whichever ball they wanted to play, no matter whether it was qualifying rounds, the group stage, the knockout stages, and even except the final though. If you were Barcelona, you would use Nike. If you were, a team like Chelsea and Lyon, you would use Umbro and all types of stuff. But now, for the first time ever, UEFA have introduced a ball and have announced that all 32 teams participating will use the new Adidas Finale Champions League Star Ball. That way, no team can have an advantage just of their ball use and stuff like that. But which of these changes had the biggest long-term impact on European football? Comment below that. Now, let's talk about the preseason tournaments, as they were literally the building blocks to the season start. Now, let's start with the Amsterdam tournament, which was obviously held in Amsterdam, and it featured Ajax, but also Manchester United, Inter Milan, and Porto. The competition used an unusual scoring system that rewarded attacking football by giving bonus points for goals scored. Manchester United then impressed throughout the tournament and lifted the trophy, with Cristiano Ronaldo attracting particular attention after returning from the World Cup, and especially reuniting with Wayne Rooney after what happened between them in the World Cup. This event demonstrated Alex Ferguson's growing confidence in a young United squad, but this would not be the only preseason tournament they would be in. More on that later. The DFL Liga Pokal, which is the League Cup in Germany, brought together Bayern Munich, Schalke, Werder Bremen, Hamburg, and Borussia Dortmund and Hertha Berlin. In the end, Bayern Munich defeated Schalke in the final to claim another Liga Pokal title. This tournament highlighted Bayern's continued domestic dominance and gave supporters an early look at new signing Lukas Podolski. Then we get to the Peace Cup, which was hosted in South Korea, which attracted clubs from Europe, Asia, and South America. Olympique Lyonnais with Juninho and a young Fred won the tournament after defeating, I think they're from Colombia, Once Caldas in the final. About Once Caldas, they won the Copa Libertadores 2 years ago and even played against Porto in the 2004 Intercontinental Cup. This competition was becoming increasingly respected because it allowed clubs from different continents to meet during pre-season. Another pre-season tournament was the Joan Gamper Trophy, which was obviously is about Barcelona, but Barcelona's traditional pre-season showcase gave supporters their first opportunity to welcome back the team after winning both La Liga and the Champions League the previous season. It also served as an official presentation of the squad before another title defense. And there was this one game which they literally showed the world why they are so eager to defend their European and Spanish crown. It was a game against Bayern Munich in which they comfortably won 4-0. Ronaldinho scored in that match, and they put up a show in front of their home crowd, just, exciting the fans before the big business starts. Now, another tournament that took place was also the Trofeo Teresa Herrera, which was one of Spain's oldest football tournaments, and it continued its long tradition during the summer. Although primarily a friendly competition, it remained an important part of the Spanish preseason calendar and attracted quality opposition everywhere. You guys do that research on your own. Now, my favorite part about this preseason tournament has to be the Vodacom Challenge. Now, the Vodacom Challenge is a competition that takes place every year before the season starts. Before 2006, right, only African team to participate that can come to South Africa and play against the likes of Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs, which was, Esportif to Tunis, and even some teams from Ghana and Nigeria and all that jazz would come to, and even the DRC Congo would come to South Africa and play their preseason matches there. Now, for the first time ever, Manchester United, which is one of the most supported teams in the country, came to compete against Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. The matches attracted huge crowds and created a festival atmosphere. Manager Alex Ferguson rotated the squad throughout the competition, balancing match fitness with tactical preparation. The final ended in a goalless draw before Kaizer Chiefs defied all odds to beat Manchester United on penalties to win the tournament. And I made a video about this last week, so you can go. So I will also put that link in the description for you to come check it out. But was it a big and important moment for Kaizer Chiefs, because it meant a lot to them. In the words of the commentator, he said, "Don't tell them it's a preseason friendly, because look what it means to the players, especially on their faces. They just acted as if they won the Champions League, even though it was just a preseason tournament. But for South African football supporters, the event demonstrated the country's growing importance on the football calendar. So which tournament carried the most prestige in 2006? Comment below. Now, whilst the preseason tournaments, the transfer market, and also the infamous Calciopoli Scandal were probably the talking points of this post-World Cup period, at the same time, there were some goodbyes. Most notably Zinedine Zidane. You all know him for his headbutt against Marco Materazzi at the World Cup final. He ended up retiring after the World Cup after an illustrious career. One of the greatest players to ever play the game at his position. It didn't matter if you're a Real Madrid fan or a Juventus fan or a Barcelona fan. Every touch of the ball just turned into an iconic moment. He has basically won everything that there is to win. The Champions League, Euros, World Cup, the Ballon d'Or. And even though his final match ended in controversy with that headbutt, I did talk about this in my World Cup podcast, he remains one of football's greatest ever midfielders. But he was not the only player to say goodbye during this period. Also, at the same time, Dennis Bergkamp said goodbye following a testimonial match at Arsenal's new Emirates Stadium against his old club, which was Ajax. His creativity, technical ability, and unforgettable goals made him one of the Premier League's greatest ever players. He was also not the only Premier League player to retire in 2006, as Alan Shearer ended his career as the Premier League's all-time leading goal scorer with 260 goals. He hit the 260 goal mark against Portsmouth in February. He is regarded as one of the greatest ever players. So Newcastle United will have to look for a replacement. Maybe with Obafemi Martins they could, and also with Michael Owen. Who knows? And also another player who left was Roy Keane, who ended his career after just a single season at Celtic following some disputes with Sir Alex Ferguson and also many other issues. He will start a new journey in his life as a Sky Sports pundit. So now, with all this going on, as preseason came to an end, anticipation reached its highest point. So, the burning questions are: can Chelsea defend their Premier League title? Can Barcelona retain the La Liga and the Champions League? Can Inter Milan take advantage of Juventus' absence from Serie A and dominate it in the coming years? And will Bayern make it a hat-trick of Bundesliga titles? And also, last thing before we go, there are some newly promoted clubs, most notably in England, where Reading who were promoted to the Premier League for the first time after an incredible season last season in the Championship. They will be joined by Watford, who are the playoff winners, and also Sheffield United. and many other clubs were also promoted across Europe. So let's see if they'll survive or get relegated. But anyways, that is all what the summer of 2006 had to offer, from the Calciopoli Scandal destroying Serie A from the inside to a South African team defying all odds to beat Manchester United. This post-World Cup period delivered it all. Next time on Football Flashbacks, the 2006-2007 season starts. This is where the real business starts. This is where all those big competitions, the Premier League, the Bundesliga, the Liga, the Serie A, La Liga, the Champions League, the UEFA Cup, everything starts coming back. And between now and May, you'll be listening to everything that season had to offer. So make sure you hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out for the content. But anyways, that's what's it for today's podcast. Have a great day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.